Welcome everyone to this detailed explainer of Sankhya philosophy. If you've ever wondered how ancient thinkers broke down the absolute fundamentals of the universe, long before modern physics was even a thought, well, you are exactly in the right place. Founded by the sage Kapila and codified in texts like the Samkhya Sutra, this is actually one of the oldest schools of Indian thought. Today, we're going to deconstruct the entire cosmos, from the hidden, microscopic energies of matter right down to the pure, untouchable spark of consciousness. We are diving straight into the mind of Sage Kapila. So, let's get into it.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover causation in Sankhya philosophy. Then, Prakriti and the Three Gunas. Third is Purusha, the pure consciousness. Fourth, the cosmic stages of evolution. Fifth, valid sources of knowledge. And finally, number 6, from bondage to liberation.
Okay, to truly grasp Sankhya, we've got to start with its foundation. Unlike some other philosophies that argue everything is just one giant illusion, or maybe just one single spirit, Sankhya is what we call a dualistic realism. That means it absolutely insists on the existence of two ultimate independent realities. First, you have Prakriti, which is the non-self or matter. And second, you have Purusha, which is the self or spirit. Now here's the crucial part. Both matter and spirit are absolute, equal, and entirely real. They are as radically different from one another as a subject is from an object. An object can literally never be the subject, and the subject can never be the object.
Moving into Section 1, Causation in Samkhya Philosophy.
So let's talk about Satkaryavada. This is Samkhya's incredibly unique theory of causation. It argues that an effect is never a completely new creation that just pops out of thin air. Instead, the effect already exists inside its material cause long before it is actually produced. Think about curd and milk. When you make curd, you aren't magically creating it. You are simply coaxing out the curd that was already latently hiding inside the milk. In this view, creation is really just manifestation.
To back this up, Isvaraka Krishna, a major scholar of this philosophy, laid out 5 rigorous logical proofs to defend Satkaryavada against its critics. Let's break them down. First, you can't create something from nothing. 1,000 artists cannot turn a blue canvas yellow just by wishing it, right? Second, specific effects need specific materials. If you want a jar, you need clay, not a bunch of threads. Third, if effects weren't strictly tied to causes, anything could arise from anything. You could just squeeze butter out of a pile of sand. But obviously you can't do that. Fourth, a cause absolutely must have the specific, potent causal energy to produce an effect. And fifth, the effect and the cause share an identical essence. They really aren't entirely different entities at all.
Let's dive into Section 2, Prakriti and the Three Gunas.
Since every limited, dependent object in our world needs a cause, it makes sense that the ultimate cause of the cosmos cannot itself have a cause. Otherwise, we'd just be stuck in an infinite loop. So, this absolute first cause is Prakriti, which is sometimes called Pradhana. It is totally uncaused, eternal, independent, and all-pervading. In its absolute essence, it is completely unconscious material, referred to as jada, and it exists in this subtle, unmanifested state known as avyakta. Because of that, it cannot be directly perceived. We can only infer its grand existence by looking at the sheer myriad of effects it produces.
But here's the thing, Prakriti isn't just some lifeless block of cosmic clay. It's actually a highly dynamic state of equilibrium made up of 3 fundamental attributes or gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva is the illuminating principle of pleasure and light. Think of a blazing fire or a perfectly clear reflection, and it's symbolized by the color white. Then you have rajas. That's the active, mobile principle causing restlessness and even pain. It's like a howling wind and it's colored red. Finally, there's tamas. This is the heavy, passive principle of ignorance, characterized by drowsiness or sheer laziness, and its color is black. These 3 forces are present in absolutely every single object, and they are in a constant tug of war, contradicting and cooperating, each perpetually trying to dominate the other 2.
Now, because these gunas are constantly shifting, distortion is literally their very nature. And there are 2 distinct states of change here. The first is svarupa. This is a homogeneous state of perfect, undisturbed dissolution. Sattva only creates more sattva, like a perfectly still glassy pond. During this state, absolutely nothing new is created. But then, creation sparks during virupa. This is a heterogeneous state, where the gunas violently clash and try to dominate each other, much like a churning whirlpool. This intense friction is the absolute starting point of all cosmic evolution.
Bringing us to Section 3, Purusha, the pure consciousness.
Enter Purusha. Purusha is the eternal self,
But you have to understand, it isn't just some substance that happens to have consciousness. It is pure consciousness itself. It's the supreme knower, the completely impartial spectator sitting way beyond space, time, change, and those three gunas we just talked about. It's eternally free and entirely inactive. And, interestingly enough, Sankhya strongly argues for a plurality of selves, meaning there isn't just one giant cosmic soul out there. Instead, there are many individual Purushas, all identical in their pure essence, residing in different beings.
You might be wondering, how do we even prove this invisible consciousness exists? Well, it's quite logical. Because Prakriti is completely unconscious material, it literally cannot experience its own creations. Therefore, all these amazing worldly objects must exist for the sake of a conscious entity to witness them. Prakriti is the bhogya, the one to be enjoyed. And because of that, there absolutely must be a bhokta, an enjoyer. And that enjoyer is Purusha.
On to Section 4, the cosmic stages of evolution. So how does the universe actually evolve? It requires both of these realities to come together. Think of it like this classic analogy. Prakriti is like a highly capable but entirely blind man. He has all the physical power to move and build, but zero vision or consciousness to guide him. Purusha, on the other hand, is like a lame man. He can see everything perfectly clearly, but he cannot act or move an inch. So by sitting on the blind man's shoulders, the lame man provides the direction while the blind man provides the motion. Together, their mere nearness disrupts that delicate balance of the gunas and triggers the spectacular chain reaction of cosmic evolution.
And this sets off a very precise, sequential cosmic order. It traces the journey all the way from the invisible, subtle energies of Prakriti, flowing down into our psychology, and finally solidifying into the physical dirt under our feet. Let's break this massive process down into two clear stages.
The very first products of this cosmic evolution are actually entirely psychological. First emerges Mahat, which is the cosmic intellect, or buddhi. This is heavily dominated by that illuminating sattva guna. Its main job is decision-making and distinguishing the knower from the known. Now, from Mahat comes ahamkara, the ego. This step is vital. This is the exact mechanism that tricks you into feeling, I am doing this, or this is mine. It's what makes us feel like we're active agents. And finally, from the ego, the manas, or the mind, evolves. The manas acts as an internal processor that takes raw data from our senses and synthesizes it into coherent thoughts.
Now, ahamkara, the ego, is the major branching point for everything else. Driven by the different gunas, it splinters out to literally create the physical universe. First, it generates the jinendriyas. Those are our 5 sense organs: the nose, ears, eyes, skin, and tongue. It also produces the karmendriyas, our 5 organs of action, which includes our mouth, hands, feet, and so on. Simultaneously, it creates the tanmatras. These are the subtle, completely imperceptible, pure essences of sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. And finally, these subtle essences condense and harden into the mahabhutas, the gross physical elements of earth, water, air, fire, and ether that make up the tangible world around us.
Which brings us to Section 5, valid sources of knowledge.
With the universe fully constructed, we have to ask, how do we actually know anything about it? Samkhya epistemology strictly limits valid knowledge to 3 independent sources, known as pramanas. The first is perception. This is a complex chain where an object touches a sense organ, connects to the mind, and then relates to the intellect or mahat. But remember, the intellect is unconscious matter, so it needs the pure light of Purusha to actually know what it's looking at. Perception is divided into nirvikalpaka, which is simple, indeterminate observation, and savakalpaka, which is clear, determinate understanding. The second source is inference. This relies on a vyapti, or a universal rule. Inference is split into vita, for affirmative reasoning, and avita, for negative reasoning. Finally, there's verbal testimony, or sabda. This is trustworthy spoken knowledge, divided into laukika, secular testimony from reliable people, and vedika, absolute scriptural testimony.
And finally, Section 6, from bondage to liberation.
According to Sankhya, suffering is completely unavoidable as long as we have an attachment to those gunas. Bondage essentially happens due to a tragic case of mistaken identity. The eternal, perfectly pure self, Purusha, becomes confused by ignorance and starts identifying itself with the mind, the intellect, and the ego. It forgets that those are just mechanical products of Prakriti. It forgets it is just the peaceful observer,
gets caught up in the drama of the movie, and truly believes it is the one suffering on screen.
To escape this endless cycle of suffering, one must attain liberation. This is the summum bonum, the ultimate, highest goal of life. And Samkhya outlines 2 stages of this freedom. First is Jivan Mukti. This is where an individual attains profound realization and completely disconnects from worldly suffering while still alive and walking the earth in a physical body. But the ultimate stage is Videhamukti, or Kaivalya. This is the complete and final liberation from the physical body, achieved only after death, where the soul resides forever in total undisturbed purity.
But as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to really think about. If the spirit is already forever free, and the physical mind is just an unfeeling, unconscious machine, who exactly is experiencing the journey to freedom? I leave you with that massive paradox to ponder. Until next time,